All right, today we are diving deep into the Jewish War by the ancient historian Flavius Josephus. We're going straight to the heart of King Herod's court. And let me tell you, it's a world of absolute power, crippling paranoia, and just intense family drama. We're about to see just how a single, masterful manipulator can tear a royal family apart from the inside out. Let's get right into it.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the cracks that were already there in the royal family. This house divided. Then we'll meet the guy who shows up to make everything 1,000 times worse. We'll watch him spin this deadly web of lies, see how it pushes the king into an unstoppable rage, and finally, we'll see the devastating price of all that deceit.
So let's start with that house divided. See, to really get what happens next, you have to understand this was not a happy, healthy family. Not even close. Josephus paints this picture of a court that was already totally poisoned by jealousy and suspicion, long before our main villain even steps onto the scene.
Okay, so to keep this all straight, here are the key players. You've got King Herod at the top, his oldest son is Antipater, and he is hungry for power. Then there's Alexander and Aristobulus. Now, their mother, Mariamne, was actually executed by their own father, Herod.
Yeah, that fact just hangs over everything. To make it even more complicated, Alexander is married to the daughter of a neighboring king, which gives him a powerful ally. This whole messy situation is what Josephus literally calls the rotten parts of the family.
You can just feel how this whole thing was a ticking time bomb, right? Antipater couldn't stand his half-brothers, and they in turn were terrified of the father who'd already killed their mom. The entire court was just a tinderbox, basically waiting for someone to light a match.
And here comes the match. A man named Eurycles of Sparta walks into this powder keg of a court, and his greed is about to set the entire kingdom ablaze.
Josephus tells us this guy Eurycles had expensive tastes that he couldn't afford back home in Greece, so he comes to Judea looking for a payday. And he was a genius at flattery. He immediately figured out King Herod's blind side and just told him everything he wanted to hear. In no time, he becomes one of the king's closest friends, not out of loyalty, but out of pure, cold calculation.
And his method? It's brilliant, in a terrifying way. First, he gets in good with Antipater. Then he fakes a connection to Alexander's father-in-law to win his trust. Alexander tragically thinks he's found a real friend. Eurycles does the same thing with Aristobulus. He's playing every side, collecting all their secrets and complaints, all while being secretly paid by Antipater to destroy the other two. So now Eurycles has everybody's trust, and he has all the ammunition he needs. But he doesn't just repeat what they said. Oh no. He twists their words, adds his own deadly lies, and builds this airtight case for something truly awful, attempted parricide. He doesn't go to Herod as just some guy with information. No, he frames himself as a hero, a savior. He tells the king he has single-handedly stopped a plot just in the nick of time, that Alexander's sword was practically at his throat. It's an incredible piece of theater. Now, this is the first drop of poison, and it is perfectly designed. Eurycles brings up the ghosts of Herod's past, his wife Mariamne and her grandfather Hyrcanus, both of whom he had killed. This immediately hits Herod's biggest insecurity, his deepest guilt and paranoia. It's a masterstroke. And then, wham, the direct hit. This quote, completely made up of course, leaves zero room for doubt. Eurycles is basically telling Herod that his son Alexander believes killing him isn't just necessary to become king, it's the right thing to do. You can't imagine a more inflammatory thing to say. And to make the lie impossible to shake, Eurycles adds all these details. He says Alexander has an escape plan with his powerful father-in-law, a plan to go straight to Caesar in Rome, and a plan to expose all the corruption and bloodshed of Herod's entire reign. It's a complete, terrifying, and totally believable story. And it's all fake. These perfectly crafted lies fall on the most fertile ground you could possibly imagine, the mind of an already deeply paranoid and suspicious king. And the effect is instant, and it's irreversible. The language Josephus uses here is so important. He says Herod's anger becomes incurable. It's not just a mood he's in, it's a permanent condition. At this point, he is psychologically incapable of hearing reason. His mind is made up. It's locked.
And this is where the story gets just maddening. Herod is desperate for proof, but every single piece of evidence just falls apart. Men are tortured, but they confess to nothing. A critical letter, it's exposed as a total forgery. There is literally no credible evidence. Nothing.
This just perfectly sums up the whole tragedy, doesn't it? Eurycles, the liar, is praised as a savior and a benefactor. Meanwhile, a man named Eurytus, a true friend of Alexander who swears the accusations are false, is completely ignored. In this court, the truth has no value. Only the accusation matters.
This is the point of no return. Josephus flat out says that Herod himself knew the evidence was weak. He found it unconvincing. But it didn't matter. His incurable rage had already passed judgment. He orders his sons to be arrested, sealing their fate not with evidence but with suspicion alone.
So, in the final act of this tragedy, we see what happens next. Treachery gets a huge payday, innocence is powerless, and the stage is set for even more bloodshed.
So what does a lie that destroys a family get you? How about 50 talents? Now, it's hard to give an exact modern value, but think of it as a staggering, life-altering fortune. All for a lie that would get 2 princes killed.
But karma does eventually find Eurycles. He takes his money and flees Judea, then goes and cons more money out of King Archelaus. He lives it up in Greece for a while, but his corrupt nature finally catches up to him. He gets accused of serious crimes and is ultimately banished by Caesar himself. His treachery brought him wealth for a time, but it also brought him ruin.
But for Alexander and Aristobulus, there was no escape. With their father's mind completely poisoned, willing to listen only to things that confirm their guilt, their execution was now just a matter of time. The liar's poison had done its job.
And so this whole account from Josephus leaves us with this really chilling question. When a leader, any leader, is already determined to believe the worst, what chance does the truth actually have? What power can facts and evidence possibly hold against an incurable rage?